Welcome to Pharma Drama, the channel where we look at the science of healthcare and healthcare products. As you probably know, I make my UCL lectures freely available, and this is a lecture that forms part of my module on our MSc programs. So, if you're one of our UCL students, welcome. If you're a student external to UCL, also welcome. You can watch the lecture without fear of an exam at the end. In today's video, we're going to discuss the concept of pharmaceutical pre-formulation. We will have a regular coffee break, but I see no reason not to start without a coffee, and I recommend that you get a drink too. Then, when you're ready, sit back, relax, and let's make a start. On the screen in front of you are today's learning objectives. By the end of the lecture, you should be able to understand why drug substances are formulated into drug products. You may be new to the world of pharmaceuticals and so may not be clear what drug substances and drug products are, so I shall explain those concepts in a moment. You should know a number of key formulation principles, and I guarantee if you end up working in product development, you will see these principles in action. You should recognise that although a pharmaceutical company may have many thousands of potential compounds that it might develop into drug products, it cannot afford to take more than 2 or 3 forward. And so making a rational decision on which compounds to select, based on pre-formulation characterisation, is absolutely essential. And finally, you should know the main physicochemical properties that are measured and how they feed into the biopharmaceutical classification system, or BCS. Again, don't worry if you are not familiar with these terms, because I will define them in this lecture. It always surprises me when I ask our pharmacy students, what is the difference between a drug and a medicine? In many cases, the words are used interchangeably, but they mean very different things. So before we begin the lecture properly, let me define these terms. On the screen in front of you, you can see a box of ibuprofen tablets and a chemical structure. The chemical structure is ibuprofen itself, and that is the drug substance or active ingredient. In other words, in the body, this is the chemical substance that elicits a pharmacological effect. We do not, however, usually give patients the pure drug substance for reasons we will discuss shortly. Rather, we give them a formulated medicine containing the drug substance. The medicine, or drug product, contains not only the drug substance but also a number of other ingredients, most of which have some particular function. We have a special name for the other ingredients in a drug product: excipients. So a medicine is a formulated drug product that contains an active drug substance. Why do we formulate drug products in the first place? Because humans have lots of medical conditions and we want to try and cure them, or at least make them feel better. On the screen in front of you is a patient who has a headache. We give her the appropriate drug product, our old friend ibuprofen again, and a little while later she feels better. The graph on the left of the screen explains what is actually going on. The y-axis shows the concentration of ibuprofen in the blood plasma, and the x-axis shows time after administration. The concentration increases as the tablet dissolves and the drug is absorbed, and then decreases as the body metabolizes and excretes it. To exert a pharmacological effect, we want the concentration to be above the minimum effective concentration, or MEC, but below the minimum toxic concentration, or MTC. If a problem persists for some time, then the patient may take additional tablets, and we space them out to keep the plasma concentration within that window. I think you might see that if the patient takes tablets too frequently, the plasma concentration may rise above the MTC, and if the patient takes tablets too infrequently, the plasma concentration may drop below the MEC. A key factor in the performance of drug products is physical form. By that I mean whether the drug substance or excipients are crystalline or amorphous. If you're not sure what these terms mean, I have uploaded videos that define each, and you will find links to them in the comments section below. 5 products are shown on the screen, and it might not seem obvious to you that physical form is important in these products, but I assure you it is. Starting at the bottom right, with simple tablets, the dissolution rate of tablets will change depending on whether the drug substance is present as crystalline particles or in an amorphous form. Usually amorphous forms will dissolve faster. The remaining 4 products share a common feature. They all depend on being fully or partially amorphous to function properly. The film strip and the meltlet tablets are both fully amorphous. They are designed to be placed in the mouth and work without the patient swallowing additional water. Because they are amorphous, the moisture already present in the mouth rapidly dissolves the product and the drug substance can be swallowed. The glass vial contains a drug intended for parenteral delivery and injection. Obviously, a formulation to be injected needs to be an aqueous solution. But what happens if the drug degrades in water? The water can only be added immediately prior to administration, but it is essential the drug dissolves instantly and completely. To inject someone with a suspension containing even tiny particles would be disastrous. To ensure rapid and complete dissolution, the drug is freeze-dried or lyophilized directly into the glass vial. Don't worry, for now, if you've never come across freeze-drying. We will discuss it in the lecture on amorphous materials. For now, all you need to know is that freeze-drying creates a highly porous amorphous material that dissolves very rapidly. The final product on the screen to the top left is a dry powder inhaler. Again, we will discuss these in a separate lecture. But for now, it suffices for me to say that DPI formulations often contain milled powders, and these can be partially amorphous, usually on their surfaces, and this is critical for their use in generating an aerosol. I said I would give you some basic formulation principles, so let's talk through them. I learnt these from a colleague when I worked at Thornton & Ross, which is a small pharmaceutical company based in Yorkshire. The first one is, the more trivial the complaint, the more demanding the consumer. Now at first, that seems counterintuitive, but think about this. Imagine you suffered a heart attack and attempts to restart your heart by CPR and electric shocks had failed. One option would be to inject adrenaline directly into your heart. Not very pleasant, I think you'll agree, but you wouldn't complain. You would, of course, be unconscious. On the other hand, imagine you had a bit of a dull ache in your left leg. You go to the supermarket for a painkiller, and because most are available over the counter, or OTC, you are confronted with a huge range of options. You may have picked up on this already, but I love ibuprofen. And by that, I don't mean I'm addicted to it. Rather, I think it's the ideal model drug to explain many scientific concepts to you, and I shall do so again here. Nurofen is the originator brand for ibuprofen, and there are many Nurofen products on general sale. Nurofen, Nurofen Express, Nurofen Cold and Flu, Nurofen for period pain, and so on. How many types of Nurofen do you think are currently available in the UK and would be presented to you in a supermarket? I'm going to give you a moment to think about that while I drink my coffee. Okay, had a think. Come up with a number. 21. There are 21 different types, all in glossy packaging, tempting you to buy them over a generic equivalent. Now, in many cases, the products do act differently. Nurofen Express does indeed get ibuprofen into your bloodstream faster than standard Nurofen, for instance. But in some cases, the products are identical, and the difference in branding is simply a marketing exercise. Incidentally, the makers of Nurofen, Reckitt Benckiser, were sued in Australia a few years ago because they were selling what was the same tablet but branded differently for different prices. Unsurprisingly, they lost the case. The second formulation principle is that many OTC products are developed based on a marketing strategy or advantage. You may never have thought of that, so let me give you some examples. The advert on the screen is for Nurofen Meltlets. H2 No. Absolutely brilliant. As I mentioned already, Meltlets are amorphous tablets that are designed to melt in the mouth without any additional water. Therefore, the consumer can carry a box of Meltlets in their bag, but they do not need to carry a bottle of water. Here are two more examples. On the left is a product for mouth ulcers, Igloo. If you've ever used mouth ulcer products, you'll know you put a blob of gel over the ulcer, which looks very much like, well, an igloo. On the right is an even cleverer brand, in my opinion. This is a roll-on liquid containing levomenthol that is designed to help reduce headaches. It's just like a roll-on deodorant, except that you roll it on your forehead. And the name, Forehead, absolute genius, and I would totally buy a product like that just because I like the play on words. And in fact, I did buy this product, so let's try it and see how we feel. Yeah, I feel better. Two more principles, then we can take a break. Medicines for children are formulated for the mother. What does that mean? It means no mother will allow her child to take something she hasn't tried for herself. If she doesn't like it, there's no way it will be going near her child. So the flavours are chosen for the mother, not the child. I didn't believe this until my wife and I had a child, whereupon I witnessed exactly this behaviour. The last principle, and it's probably the most important actually, is that the simplest product will always be the marketed product. Think about the process of bringing a medicine to market. The manufacturer has to demonstrate the safety, efficacy and quality of the product to the appropriate regulator. Every excipient or production step that is added to a product adds cost, complexity and increases the chances of problems. So nothing is added without good reason. I often suggest to students to read the patient information leaflet that comes with medicines, as it lists all of the excipients. It's a good exercise then to try and work out what each excipient is doing, because most have a specific function. I remember talking to a production manager at Pfizer who was responsible for manufacturing products that the laboratory scientists had developed. In the lab, scientists develop all sorts of weird and wonderful products, as I'm sure you will do in your projects if you're studying at UCL. His first question, irrespective of what product was presented to him, was, can it be made as a tablet? And the second was, is there any production step that takes longer than 8 hours? Because if there was, it would require a second shift of staff. The product shown at the bottom of the screen is poranox. We will discuss this later in the term, but poranox contains itraconazole as the active drug. The drug is dispersed in a solution of ethanol and HPMC, which is a type of polymer, and is spray coated onto sugar particles to make a solid amorphous dispersion. These granules are then placed in a capsule. No manufacturer would go to such lengths to make such a product unless it was absolutely essential. In this case, itraconazole has disastrous aqueous solubility, so the amorphous dispersion is needed to help it dissolve. Right, now it's time for a coffee break. When we come back, we'll look at what types of molecules are being developed and how and why we need to characterise their properties. So, if you're okay with that, get yourself a drink and I'll see you again in a minute.